good evening, everyone. I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Ms. Gehring, the roll call, please.
Mr. Kojak.
Here.
Mr. Razi.
Here.
Mr. Souza.
Here.
All right, if you would please stand for the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this time I'd like to make a motion to approve the clerk's journal and accept the tapes as the official minutes of the November 18, 2020 Township Trustee meeting.
Second.
Mr. Kojak.
Yes.
Mr. Razi.
Yes.
Mr. Souza.
Yes.
All right, next item on the agenda are bills before the board. Without objection, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the bills as presented to the board this evening.
Second.
Mr. Razi.
Yes.
Mr. Souza.
Yes.
Mr. Kojak.
Yes. With that, I'll go ahead and move on to the public comments portion of the agenda, and I would like to open up the floor to public comments at 6:32 p.m. And while we have someone approaching, Mr. Sunners, was there anyone that provided comments this evening via online?
Just one online from Ms. Diana Berry at 8155 Worcester Drive, Mainville, Ohio 46039. It was recently brought to my attention that the ball fields at Mounds Park lease is up for renewal or cancellation. As a resident of Hamilton Township, I vote for the termination of the lease renewal. Whoever has been in charge and whoever is supposed to keep up the property has done a poor to miserable job. In the contract, it does state he has to update and upkeep the lease to be renewed, and I believe he has not done that. Both of my children have played there, and while the actual field might be nice, everything around it, the wood structures, the netting, everything is dilapidated. I believe the township would be better served if they took over and actually made decent upgrades and benefited financially from it. $1 a year in this economy, that is atrocious and should never have happened and should never continue. Please do not renew his lease. I, for one, would be angry if this happens. He did not keep up his end of the lease. The township can do better. Diana Berry. That's the only one we have to spend.
Thank you. All right, and sir, if you would, for the record, just state your name and address, please.
Okay, good evening. My name is Brian Conley, 112 Colonial Drive, Loveland, Ohio. This is why we're here, obviously. I've got my attorney, Brian, that's going to speak on my behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustees, my name is Brian Redden, R-E-D-D-E-N. I'm an attorney at Beekner, Hafner, Myers & Koenig Law Firm. It's 221 East 4th Street, Suite 2300, Cincinnati 45202. Counsel for Mr. Conley in this matter. We were notified yesterday morning when Mr. Conley received electronic mail from Mr. Centers that, I apologize, Monday morning, when Mr. Centers emailed Mr. Conley for the first time indicating that there would be a recommendation for non-renewal of the lease based upon failure to comply with the lease agreement, Section 6. I'm making the assumption that the trustees have had an opportunity at some point to review the lease. That Section 6 addresses very specific legal terms of waste, nuisance, or unlawful use. Had there actually been waste, nuisance, or unlawful use of the premises at any point during the last 10 years, of Mr. Conley's tenancy at the Fields, which I would inform the trustees, as I'm sure many of you know, he has invested substantial money into the improvement of the fields over the course of the last 10 years. In fact, he's invested approximately $200,000 of his own money, personal money that he's invested, taking the area from a waste disposal facility to multiple baseball fields that are used and have been used for youth baseball over the last decade. That's an aside, though, to what Section 15 of the lease provides, which is if there is any failure of any condition of the lease, it is incumbent upon the landlord, being the township, to notify him of a violation and provide him with 30 days prior written notice to cure any violation. No notice that would arise to the level of a violation of the lease has ever been provided to Mr. Conley at any time over the course of the last 10 years, especially anything that would arise to what is provided for in paragraph 6, being lease of the premises, creation of a nuisance, selling or permitting alcohol on the premises, or using the premises for an unlawful purpose. Given those issues and the failure of the township at any point to notify Mr. Conley of a breach of the lease that would trigger his requirement to cure under Section 15, Section 24 then comes into play on page 8 of the lease. That requires that so long as Mr. Conley is in substantial compliance with the lease, meaning he's received no written notice of a breach of the lease, then he shall be granted. Not may, not should, not might be. He shall be granted an option to renew the lease for a period of 10 additional years, and the new rental amount shall continue to be $1 per year. That was the deal that was negotiated in 2010. There has been substantial compliance. Frankly, Mr. Conley has greatly improved the property from where it was at the commencement of the lease, rather than committing waste or allowing a nuisance. And as a result, with no notice of noncompliance, no demand that Mr. Conley cure a breach, the only proper legal requirement under the lease is to grant him the right to renew the lease for 10 years at $1. Anything less than that puts Hamilton Township in breach of the lease and would subject Mr. Conley to damages not only for what he invested, but for the loss of sponsorships and revenue that the baseball club enjoys as a result of its operation of premises. With that, certainly Mr. Conley is in a position and would like to continue to make use of the property. He intends to stay. He's made a very substantial investment there, and anything but non-renewal of the lease significantly economically damages him. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, I will close the floor to public comments at 6:39 p.m. Gentlemen, the next item we have on the agenda tonight are human resource items. Looks like we do have a roster update, Mr. Centers.
Yes, sir. Tonight we're requesting a motion to update the Hamilton Township roster as follows. Tanner Shands, date of resignation 11/25/2020 as a part-time firefighter EMT.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Cordray?
Yes.
Mr. Razi?
Yes.
Mr. Souza?
Yes.
All right, with that, we will go, is that all for this?
Yes, sir.
All right, great, thank you. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and move on to new business tonight, gentlemen. The first item we have on the agenda for consideration is a motion to reschedule the December 16th, 2020 trustee meeting from 6:30 p.m. to 1:00 p.m. that same day for an employee recognition and awards. This is something we've done every year, I know, at least since Mr. Rossi and I have been both on the board. It's just something we're going to, for consideration, if we want to go ahead and make that change again this year. This award ceremony, I know the staff had mentioned it's going to be a little bit different in that we're definitely still gonna stream it live, Facebook for family and friends, but obviously gonna keep the attendance much smaller for public health reasons. Someone have any questions, comments?
No, I don't.
All right, with that, I'll make a motion to reschedule the December 16th, 2020 trustee meeting to 1 p.m. Eastern time.
Second?
Mr. Souza?
Yes.
Mr. Razzi?
Yes.
Mr. Cordray?
Yes. Next item on the agenda, gentlemen, is a motion to reschedule the January 20th, 2021 trustee meeting to January 22nd, 2021 at 9 a.m. for our annual township retreat. This, again, like we did last year, just moving into the following Friday to accommodate our full day that we had planning out the 2021 year. Questions, comments, anything?
I think we're strongly leaning towards just doing that here in light of the COVID environment.
I think that's probably what's gonna happen, yeah. We've called around, requested different locations, and a lot of places aren't just renting out or, giving us space available, so it might just end up here.
Makes sense.
So we'll just make a, I imagine a public announcement once we have a location and whatnot.
Yeah, we'll give a formal, announcement of public notice.
Sounds good. All right, with that, I will go ahead and make a motion to reschedule or move the January 20th, 2021 trustee meeting to January 22nd, 2021 at 9 a.m.
Second?
Mr. Razzi?
Yes.
Mr. Cordray?
Yes.
Mr. Souza?
Yes.
All right, gentlemen. Next motion to consider is with regard to the CTC field lease agreement. Mr. Conley for an additional 10 years per section 24 of the original lease agreement. Mr. Shires, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. So you have a staff report in front of you for the staff recommendation on the CTC field lease agreement. So the staff report, I'd like to give background, a little quick timeline, and then some circumstances leading up to the staff recommendation. So the facts are that Mr. Connolly entered into this lease agreement on December 15th, 2010 with the Board of Trustees at that time. The agreements were $1 per year lease for 10 years with an automatic renewal period of an additional 10 years if, and his attorney already quoted this as, quote, at the end of the initial term of the lease, if a majority Hamilton Township Park Board reasonably determines that the lessee uses the baseball facility during the initial term in substantial compliance with the lease, then the lessor shall grant options for renewal for the lease for 10 years at $1. As the park board's dissolved since that contract was entered into, that this authority now goes to the Board of Trustees as the owners of Mounds Park. So the substantial compliance in question is in Section 6. So non-compliance with Section 6, as read on public records already, or on public comments already, was no waste, nuisance, or unlawful use. And it's important to know what nuisance and waste actually are. The ORC describes nuisance as being vegetation, garbage, refuse, or other debris from land in the township. And waste, although we all think of it as garbage or rubbish, in the purview of the law, waste is actually failure to maintain the condition of the property in a manner that allows future use of the property or otherwise damages or destroys the value. So what that means is at the end of the lease agreement, whether it be 10 years or after the renewal period of an additional 10 years, if that property is not ready to be turned over in immediate use, then that's waste. So that's what we're looking at here. The timeline we're going to go through is March 2016, November 2018 through March 2019, April 19, April 20, and just last month, November 2020. So in March 2016, Mr. Hickey, Public Works Director, of course oversees parks, met with Mr. Conley to discuss ongoing concerns with non-compliance issues in the lease agreement for CTC Fields. The concerns included garbage in the parking lot, nuisance debris along the front of the roadway, which were large mounds of chippings, which I'll show a picture of. The batting cages had already turned into what we would define as waste because they were deteriorated, and that was back in 2016. Nuisance in front of the property, and this nuisance debris which I'll show a picture of, actually affected the stormwater drainage, so we needed that addressed and moved. There's plywood discarded in the woods and broken down mower, which is in fact still there today. So just a couple pictures, and as I go through this presentation, I've grabbed 4, 5, 6 pictures here and there. In front of you, I think you have about 102 pictures over the course of the last 4 years. So you have a lot more there. But the wood chippings, this was actually, Mr. Conley had asked Duke Energy to drop these off. He used them as some mulching and different things around his property. He didn't have permission to do this, so Mr. Hickey, as the Public Works Director, said, you can't have that. So we had to have that removed, some still. The tarps, they were just strewn about. This mower was inoperable, dumped in the woods. And then notably, this vegetation and nuisance here, this was overgrown to the point that it was, a lot of these chippings, when moved, got dumped here. And on the other side is the old main entrance. But what it did is it redirected our stormwater flow, and you can see it puddled up down here. So that was a major issue that Mr. Hickey, back in 2016, said he has to remove this nuisance vegetation. We took a picture this afternoon. This is what it looked like, again, the picture you just saw. This is what it looks like today. That was not removed, and now it's permanently redrawn the stormwater flow to where the flow actually disperses elsewhere in the park. 2018, the Board of Trustees came along, 2 of whom still serve today. They wanted an executive session to discuss these non-compliance issues with Mr. Conley. On November 13th, 2018, I reached out to Mr. Conley via email, which you have the emails, requesting that executive session. We went back and forth for 5 months trying to get Mr. Conley in here to discuss the non-compliance issues with the Board of Trustees and the lease agreement. He agreed to come on March 2nd, 2019. Mr. Conley came to the meeting, and prior to going into executive session, left and didn't actually go into executive session to discuss the contract. He didn't return, nor did he come back to any meetings. So following that March 2nd trustee meeting, I reached back out to him and said, would you at least come in, meet with Kenny and I to go through the lease, because some non-compliance issues. He did. At that time, he stated that he was not going to invest any more money into these fields because he doesn't know if the board would renew it at the end of 2020 anyway. Again, this was March 2019, nearly 2 years left in the contract. Said he wasn't going to invest any more money. Mr. Hickey and I explained this wasn't freshening up paint, this wasn't discretionary spending, this was obligatory spending and expenditures that are contractually agreed upon in this lease agreement that he's not agreeing to uphold, which is a violation. So April 2019, following the meeting with Kenny and I had with him, the zoning and fire inspector went out and took pictures. And for 2 years, we've now continuously taken pictures and given verbal warnings and requested cleanup and maintenance of CTC fields due to substantial nuisance issues. Based on these pictures, which were taken April 8th, 2019, you'll see that there's substantial overgrown vegetation, not in compliance with our zoning code, along with not being in compliance with the lease agreement per section 9 with the building material and debris scattered about the property. You can just see right here, this is what we would define as waste. These are sharp edges, deteriorated wood. Here's 6 more pictures of the 102 you have in front of you from just the one April 9th date. This is in the dugout. The bench is broken down. This wall's about to fall down. You can see why with the exposed pine there. Just 6 of many. Again, here's another set of many deteriorated. This makeshift 2x4 brace holding up a wall. Peeled back fencing. Delaminated block. This is a major concern. There's exposed nails where kids are running. The netting's falling down, things of that nature. Fast forward, a whole year, April 2020, Mr. Hickey goes out, takes pictures again. These I'm kind of more focusing on the nuisance being refuse, vegetation, debris, things of that nature. The other ones I tried to kind of capture the waste, but both sets of pictures offer both. Mr. Icky sent an email, I think it was an 11-page email with a bunch of pictures, and stated, I know that we've previously talked about the issues in the pictures. We need to take care of this immediately. And these pictures, they're going to show you substantial refuse and waste, such as abandoned tarps, hoses, equipment in the woods covered with vegetation, a broken down lawnmower that we've already seen, and additional building material and debris not pictured in the ones you just saw. With that, this is what the woods looked in the property. He had just dumped refuse and debris, building materials, tarps. There's multiple tarps in the pictures that you have. There's just everything. Yet again, there's our mower still dumped. We gave a timeline, get it cleaned up. So it ultimately went back down. The mower was gone. We thought he'd gotten rid of it permanently, and we ended up having, our public works had to go down and haul a bunch of stuff off, which we have pictures of that as well. Truck beds full of these tarps and everything. What we didn't know was that November 20th, or 2020, that was last month, he had not gotten rid of the mower. He had hid the mower from us. So it's still on the property, broken down. Finally, last month, fire zoning inspector did his annual inspection and found that CTC Field property was not in compliance with Section 6, again, of this lease agreement based on similar zoning and nuisance issues previously stated. These were just taken last month at the field. Things seem to have gotten worse. These are different sections of fencing, but now showing exposure there, different fence there, different rooftop falling in, high vegetation, the spindles coming down on steps, things of this nature all throughout. I wanted to highlight this picture specifically just because this is where they catch fly balls, run towards this is the outfield wall. For these reasons previously mentioned, we believe Mr. Connolly is not in substantial compliance with the lease agreement due to his pattern of disregard for Section 6 of the lease agreement, referencing waste and nuisance, specifically overgrown vegetation, and in large amount debris, waste, refuse throughout his entire property, thus giving a staff recommendation of non-renewal of this lease agreement. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You guys have any questions for Mr. Summers?
I do not know. Not right now.
I would like to give Mr. Conley and his council opportunity to address anything you'd like to address first in the presentation.
Apologize, with limited space, I've got a lot in my hands, so bear with me one moment. So specifically with respect to let's go backwards. Mr. Conley, did you receive a notice from any township representative by way of a written communication in November of 2020, so last month, with respect to the last photograph that was shown there, indicating that you were in breach of any provision of the lease and had 30 days to cure that? You need to say it so the trustees can hear you.
No.
In April of 2020, did you receive written communication from any representative of Hamilton Township that you were in breach of Section 6 of the lease and that you had 30 days to cure a breach of Section 6 of the lease?
No.
Prior to the electronic email that you received from Mr. Centers on Monday of this week indicating his belief that you were in breach of Section 6 of the lease, had you received any form of written communication from a representative of Hamilton Township that you were in breach of any specific term of the lease?
Like up to that point,
Up to that point,
other than text and conversations and things like that? Or-
other than verbal conversations or text messages about any of the things that may have been represented in pictures?
No.
Have you received any direct communications from any residents proximate to your location indicating that they believe there was any condition on the property that interfered with the use or enjoyment of their property?
No.
When you took possession of the premises that is now the CTC baseball complex, was that a dedicated park or dedicated athletic facility in any way?
No.
What was its use at that time,
I mean, they can probably answer it more,
based on what you observed?
just the area that we're at, it was just for really just dumping and storing, you know, old dead trees, dead deer, whatever. It was not really in use as a park, for sure.
Have you attempted to be responsive to Mr. Hickey when he has raised issues to you of things that were taking place at the facility, overgrown vegetation, or any debris, or anything that he's raised as a concern?
Yes, I think a good example would be I think it was the April email that Brent was referring to. I think there was a list of 6 or 8 or 10 things on there that he had sent, and this has all come on me in the last day or two, so I looked really quick today. I think there was a response back in a couple days after they emailed that with the pictures. And I think it was a few days later, maybe a week later, where I emailed Kenny back and said, hey, I rented a skid loader, Bobcat type piece of equipment, and I said, we've taken care of every picture that you sent, and could you guys come out and just kind of sign off on that? So I'm not sure what the original question was, but
And did he sign off on that?
yes.
What did he indicate to you?
Yeah, that we were good. I think it was more up to, Brent, who did you refer to with the fire department? Corey, I think it was. I think it seemed like it was more up to Corey to sign off on that. But Kenny walked around with us, and we went and we looked at every picture that they had sent, and he said that we were good.
From the time that you took possession until today, approximately what amount of money have you invested in both the development and upkeep of the CTC facility?
I don't even really want to comment on that because I'm not 100% sure.
But your best estimate.
At least a couple $100,000.
And do you, for the facility, have ongoing sponsorships, ongoing relationships for use of the facility, for tournaments at the facility, for sponsorships there, that if this lease were not to be renewed, that would have to be canceled or that would be lost?
Yes.
And what do you believe, based again on your best knowledge, the approximate value of those are, if you had to put a number to it?
I honestly can't really answer that. I mean, it's a significant number, I would say. 100,000, maybe more. I have no idea.
I think unless the trustees have any other points of clarification or questions at this point, that's everything we would want you to take into consideration.
I guess I do have one question. Mr. Conley, I'll be honest with you, up until this year, I was a certified umpire for
Right.
Ohio Athletic Association. I've umpired for over 12 years throughout the entire tri-state, been to hundreds of fields,
Yeah.
including your own over the last 4 years as both an umpire and a coach. And as far as I can tell, this is a pretty fair depiction of the state of your facility. I guess in your mind, I got a question. Do you feel this is safe for children to play at this point? Is this a safe facility? Was it safe to play at this field in the condition it's in?
I think there's a lot of things that happened, and one example I would give is we had a straight line wind come through there, and I think it was around August, that blew some of that stuff loose and some of that stuff down. We had to basically pull some of it off to the side, because I think there was, maybe one tournament left that weekend or something. Then we had to wait for insurance to come out, take their pictures and things like that. So no one has played on the fields this fall, into the summer, fall, or to this point. So I think a lot of those pictures are pictures of the park when kids were not playing there. So we do a lot of work in the fall to try to repair a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of wind damage as you go through the winter. I think we've only done fall ball out there 1 year, so we only play on it from, I believe it's April 1st to about July 5th. So it's only about whatever that is, 3-month season. There's 9 other months to do upkeep and do some things, and we've had several storms flow through there. So in some of those 9-month periods, kids are not playing out there. No one is out there. The park is closed. On average, 9 months out of the year for the past 10 years, the park is closed.
I guess my question then would be to ask you is then, this damage does not look like this happened over one storm. In fact, I was there the weekend when that storm blew through, and I know what the condition was of those fields prior to in this area, and I know what the condition was when the season began, because we played again there beforehand. This condition happened over time. So I guess my question to you is about addressing that again, because I had safety concerns walking in with my child beginning the season on these fields.
Let me speak to that, because I think there's maybe a bit of confusion, and frankly, I don't know. I'm sure that the township has legal counsel and can ask for clarification on these definitions, but both nuisance and waste have very specific definitions under the law. Ordinary wear and tear, or that CTC may not be as nice as, I know I'm using an extreme example, Great American Ballpark, or even the Crosley Field along 275, or what CHCA may have, or what Little Miami may have. That's not what waste is, that's not what nuisance is. Nuisance under the law is a noxious occurrence on a property that negatively impacts the use of neighboring or other properties. That's what a nuisance is. Nothing you've seen rises to the level of a legal nuisance. Waste is damage to a property that is beyond ordinary wear and tear, beyond that which would be reasonably expected. May there be things out there that need maintenance, that need repair, that need correction? Yes. Okay, fine. Anyone who's ever been a tenant at some point has to do fixes to a piece of property in which they're a tenant. With that said, the language of the lease and the manner in which the lease has been administered, at least to date, does not give rise to the implications of Section 6, because notice under Section 15 of breaches of Section 6 have not been provided to Mr. Conley. So while the trustees may have concerns about how things are being done out there, with all due respect, that may be an issue that plays into how the lease is administered going forward. However, what the lease requires is, because there has been substantial compliance with the way that the lease has been run to date, Section 24 requires that Mr. Conley be permitted to exercise his option. If there are conditions attached to that going forward that are reasonable and appropriate, those can certainly be discussed. But the way the lease was prepared at the time, I think mandates that he is provided the opportunity to continue to operate the property for the next 10 years.
Gentlemen, do you guys have any questions?
Would you like to directly respond to any of the comments about being responsive or addressing issues or written communications, or what do you guys, should we discuss that, or what do you advise, Ben?
No, I'd be happy to speak for it. No, I don't have any further comment. I put it all in the presentation. I would agree that waste would be beyond reasonable wear and tear, and everything in the staff report shows that it's beyond reasonable wear and tear and defines waste. So, no, I have no further cross discussion.
I don't necessarily have anything else. I look at this as, there's rot, this happened over years. Wood doesn't rot like that overnight. It takes some time. So I see just a general lack of care for the facility.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when the capital improvements were made after the lease was executed, it's pretty clear that they've started to deteriorate, and with a future renewal of the lease and the balance, the nature of the relationship, and not trying to have a good relationship and address issues and maintaining the facility when go back to 16 or 18, you potentially have 12 or 14 years left of a total 20-year lease. And to a person and to the residents of the township, you look at it in the way of trying to be amenable and addressing issues and having a quality relationship, or go in the other direction. If a mower is broken down and not working out there, it shouldn't be there 4 years later. We can squabble over technicalities and dotting I's and crossing T's, but it shows me little to no effort. If there's waste out there, tarps, nothing happens if you're not asked to do something, and there's nothing proactive in the maintenance of your facility whatsoever. And it's a land lease in essence. It was $1 a year term because it was assumed you were going to make the capital improvements to the property, and you obviously can never take those with you. That's common of any land lease situation. And the fact for you to say, I find it impossible that you've never to a man received complaints from your guests down there, our patrons at Fields, because we receive them as the public officials locally regularly anytime there's events, to the nature of people attending the park being charged, by your staffers at your events for parking or entering the facility. I know we looked to address that recently, but it's just in any situation of being forthcoming with addressing issues or honest responses and trying to improve the situation, it just seems virtually non-existent, doing the absolute bare minimum possible to maintain operations. I just can't imagine entering another 10-year term how the facility would continue to deteriorate. I've seen no effort in doing anything to me. To Joe's point, the vast majority of those pictures are prior to August of 2020. A wind event doesn't cause rot in plywood and outfield walls. That takes place over time. And it reasonably in an asset to maintain it, to a level. It's a frustrating situation. Leave it at that.
And if I may, one more thing. With the complaints we received, things of that nature, the motion in front of you gentlemen tonight is strictly based upon, is Mr. Conley within substantial compliance of the lease agreement? If so, renew it. If you don't believe so, don't renew it. That's the only thing.
And to that point, you speak of, what is a nuisance? It's
Right.
The park doesn't have immediate neighbors, but if that was someone's property in our township, we wouldn't allow a property to be maintained like like that. You know, it's, I mean, we have 2 more motions, I think, on our agenda tonight with nuisance items and personal properties in the community. It's, you know, I think we're being consistent with how we enforce, you know, our expectations in zoning in the township in regards to waste and nuisance items.
I think Mr. Conley did want to respond to one thing, if he may, before you close.
Yeah, it was in the middle of what you were saying, just almost just for the record that, you know, I think I met with everybody here, I think it was a couple of years ago, to try to start addressing some of this, and my concern that, you know, that I don't even want to say, you know, just for the record that we met a couple of years ago, I think it was exactly 2 winters ago, I think it was January of 19, and we went in the back room there and kind of, you know, where I was trying to talk through some of the issues that had come up, and that's all. I just wanted to state that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys have any further discussion, thoughts?
I do not.
All right. Well, at this time, I am going to go ahead and make a motion not to renew the CTC Fields lease agreement with Brian Conley per section 24 of the original lease agreement.
Second?
Mr. Rowley?
Yes.
Mr. Cordray?
Yes.
Mr. Sousa?
Yes.
All right, gentlemen, next item on the agenda. I believe we did a couple of- Next item on the agenda, gentlemen, is Resolution 20-1202, providing for and authorizing the removal of refuse and debris at 954 Schlottman. This resolution is for the removal of refuse and debris at the private property at the address listed on our resolution. The property owner has been given all proper notification but has refused to comply. Do you gentlemen have any questions or comments?
I do not.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 20-1202, a resolution for providing and authorizing the removal of refuse and debris at specified properties in the township, declaring a nuisance and declaring an emergency.
Second?
Mr. Sousa?
Yes.
Mr. Rowley?
Yes.
Mr. Cordray?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is similar to the resolution we just passed. This is Resolution 20-1202A. Again, resolution for the removal of refuse and debris from private property. Gentlemen, have any questions or comments with regards to this specific property? All right, go ahead and make a motion to approve Resolution 20-1202A. A resolution providing for and authorizing removal of high grass and weeds at specified property in Hamilton Township, declaring a nuisance and declaring an emergency.
Second?
Mr. Cordray?
Yes.
Mr. Sousa?
Yes.
Mr. Rowley?
Yes.
All right, next item on the agenda is Resolution 20-1202B. This is a resolution allowing Hamilton Township to remain in the intergovernmental agreement with the Warren County Tactical Response Unit. This is an annual agreement that we have, and there is not really a tangible budget impact with regards to passing this resolution. This is something we've done year in, year out, kind of since we've been on the board. Don't you guys have any questions, comments?
Chief Hughes, this is just, in essence, I mean, this is our existing agreement with SWAT, no fundamental changes to how it operates today, just an annual housekeeping event to maintain that relationship as it moves forward.
That's correct.
How many, I would ask, how many do we have? Do we have 2 representatives or 1 representative? 3, no, three now?
3 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 20-1202B, a resolution authorizing the administrator to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with other political jurisdictions for the Warren County Tactical Response Unit.
Second?
Mr. Sousa?
Yes.
Mr. Rowley?
Yes.
Mr. Cordray?
Yes. All right, the gentlemen, last resolution to consider is Resolution 20-1202C. This is a resolution with regards to an increase in appropriations for the Coronavirus Relief Act to reconcile budgets for calendar year 2020. And Mr. Cyrus, you might just kind of real quick, just kind of explain, sorry, kind of
You're right there.
how that all came about.
Yes, sir. So the jurisdictions in Warren County that didn't use all of their CARES Act funding, that returned it back to Warren County, is now being redistributed back to the jurisdictions that did use all their CARES funding. So our portion would be $107,895.22. We would encumber that right into our 2272 line that you created 2 or 3 meetings ago. Again, the next meeting in December, we will do one transfer from that line into salaries to split the remaining.
Don't you have any questions? No?
I do not.
Make a motion to approve resolution 20-1202C, a resolution authorizing and approving the increase in township appropriations in the Coronavirus Relief Act, also known as CARES Act Fund, to reconcile budgets for calendar year 2020.
Second.
Mr. Cordray?
Yes.
Mr. Ruffey?
Yes.
Mr. Souza?
Yes.
All right, gentlemen, next item up on the agenda is the fiscal officer's report. And typically we don't have any the first month, but Mr. Weber, do you have any comments or anything? Or?
No, sir, thank you, but plan to report at the next meeting on the November, expenditures and revenue.
No? So, yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next item on the agenda is the administrator's report. Mr. Summers?
Yes, sir. You're going to see some demolition movement on the Suncoat property. We had another fire within the last 30 days, so the owners have worked with the township, and they will be tearing down the building and scraping that clean. We've discussed in the next 45 days, we will be seeing that. So that's some good news there. The audio video upgrades in this room will be occurring over the next week, so by the next trustee meeting, it should be in place, and that will fix our audio issue on Facebook Live as well. The proposed 2020 comprehensive plan is in front of you for your review. We'll be bringing it to you at the next meeting. It's gone through a long comprehensive process over 18 months, and then through the Regional Planning Commission and to our committee here within township residents and stakeholders. We've done a virtual open house, received feedback there, and ultimately made the final draft that sits in front of you tonight for your review. And lastly, just want to remind you with 2020, a lot of remote work, things of that nature. In 2021, upon employees' anniversaries, you'll probably be seeing vacation rollover a lot more than normal because they didn't have the opportunity to burn vacation without being a budget impacted, buying it all out, which they have that option to do. I just want to get a kind of on your radar that that will probably be likely next year. And that's all I have for my administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Sinners. All right, next item on the agenda is the trustee comments. Mr. Souza.
Don't have much. We ended up, the number in the small business grant program from the last meeting didn't really fundamentally change in the bills before the board today. I believe we funded 11 grants at the max amount of $10,000. There's one applicant that just got a couple final documents needed in after Ellen had produced those items earlier in the week. That'll bring the total, I believe, to 12. So we were able to assist about a dozen local small businesses through that program. They're all very appreciative. Only other thing I wanted to throw out is I wanted to give Kenny a pat on the back. Continues to be a backbone and stepping up and helping when things are going on in the township. Got a notification from Mr. Centers a couple weekends ago about the other fire event at Sumco, and show up and there's Kenny at 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning finding a way to move some heavy equipment that was a burden to accessing the site. So Kenny, thank you. Got to observe the fire guys in action out there and using the ladder truck even. So it was an interesting first time event for me. But
And thank you for your help on that as well. Appreciate what you did.
didn't do anything but watch. Went and grabbed some drinks, but which was interesting during we had curfew, so I had to drive a ways to find a place to get drinks at 2 a.m. But no.
I was going to address that with you after the meeting.
I'm glad local law enforcement agencies aren't enforcing the curfew, and I did not pass an officer on the street. But then that's all I've got. Thank you, Kitty.
Mr. Rosen?
I just want to thank Chief Hughes, Chief Reed for the protection you provided through the Thanksgiving weekend, which was different for quite a few people. Our neighborhood, we didn't see many usual gatherings at all. I hope everyone enjoyed the fruit plate. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the best Christmas season we can make it. I think we've got a decorating contest again, so I'd encourage everyone to participate, and I think that'd be a fun activity for families to get out and do something, at least drive around and look at lights, even more so. So really, and staff are working on a comp plan. Hopefully we can get that done before the end of the year.
Yeah, that one's taken a little bit of time.
It has, it's here. That's all I got.
Thank you. The only thing, just have a couple things, just want to remind everybody, like Mr. Rossi did with regards to the trim the township, I think it's what we're calling it, trim the township. Information's on Facebook, just make sure everybody participates. I think everybody took advantage last weekend of the great weather, Saturday and Sunday, and there are already a boatload of lights up. So hopefully everybody will get out and participate. Just want to thank the staff. I know you guys are all remote, and you guys are all doing your part with regards to kind of the way things have been operating in the township over the last several months. Just appreciate everybody's hard work and help and just going with the flow. And just want to remind everybody as we come into the holidays, just make sure that you're staying safe, that you're taking care of yourselves, taking care of your neighbors, taking care of your friends. This is always can be a difficult time of year for a lot of people, so just make sure we're kind of taking care of each other during this time. And that's all I have this evening. And with that, I will go ahead and make a motion to enter into executive session regarding ORC section 121.22 G, subsection 3, to conference with the attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are subject to pending or imminent court action at 7:22 p.m.
Second?
Mr. Cordray?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Sousa?
Yes.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to come out of executive session at 8:15 p.m.
Second?
Mr. Cordray?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Sousa?
Yes.
All right, with no further action to be taken, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn at 8:15 p.m.
Second?
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Sousa?
Yes.
Mr. Cordray?
Yes, we're adjourned.